The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for May 24, 2022 is now in session. First on the agenda is Councilmember Dalla will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Good evening, everybody. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we invite you to preside over this meeting tonight. Even if we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. Help us each to listen and understand as others share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team in combining ideas for a great outcome. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals. May we have a spirit of camaraderie in this room and work together on our shared mission of providing a safe community for us to live and work in. And finally tonight, we also lift our hearts up in prayer for the city of Uvalde and the families impacted by today's events there. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalla. All right, we have a couple of presentations today. First, our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, has a special presentation, certificates to our fourth graders from Rose Garden Elementary. They actually participated today in the Schertz Future Leaders Program, and I had the opportunity to spend a whole hour with them this morning. So, Ms. Dennis?
Mayor and Council, we had a wonderful day today. We got a few shots of where we went. We had the Rose Garden Elementary, I believe their student council. They're third and fourth graders, and they were learning about leadership, and we started the leadership program with them. Before we do the certificates, I would like to, and they know that I'm going to pick someone. I'm going to pick a young man and a young lady to come up and say a little bit about what they learned today. If I could have Tripp come up first. And you can say whatever you want to say about what you learned. And you speak in the microphone.
To be in the election, you have to be 18 years old. You have to live in the city that you're running for 6 months. 12 months or 12 months. And you have to be a registered voter.
That was one thing that was very popular because today there is a county runoff election going on. Now, if I could have Gabriella come up. Bingo. Just say a little bit about what you learned and about leadership today.
That the police officers help and try to prevent accidents on the road, and the firefighters try to increase the level of fires.
They learned a lot. They really did. I want to thank the council members and the mayor and the staff that helped, do this. I think the kids learned a lot. They're kind of scared getting up here speaking. Remember, part of this is public speaking. To be a leader is learn to public speak. So, Mayor, if you'd come down, I would like to present these certificates to these great kids, our future leaders. I am so excited to have got to know you and work with you today. Parents and grandparents, you got some really great kids, and they are smart and they listen, and I am so proud of them. I am very proud to have them with us today.
Parents, if you'd like to take photos, please don't hesitate. Come on over.
So I'm going to call your name up, sir. I'm going to line you up, okay? I'm going to line you up, as I call it. Adeline? Dawson? Tripp?
Way to go, Tripp. Hi, Gabby. Right here, Gabby.
Hattie?
Okay, we'll do for them. Smile.
Lindsay?
Congratulations.
Amelia?
Nathan. All right. Oh.
Okay, see if we can get you all in a group.
One more.
Okay, one more, and then I'll get you all organized.
They're all excited because they're going to be on YouTube tonight.
All right, Mayor, can we have you stand here?
Yeah, come up
And remember, the taller ones in the back,
Come on.
taller ones in the front. Everyone hold your certificate. Like,
Let me see, okay, y'all want
but I want to see your faces.
Okay, ready? Okay.
Wait.
Now, what do we say? Ready? So,
Pickles and cheese.
Thanks, kids. Thank you so much. You got it? All right.
I know. Do you want to say something? Again, parents, thank you so much. Miss Belcher, you are a rock star. Teaching these kids this stuff, thank you so much.
Yes, I'd like to thank the parents who showed up and made this happen. Thank you so much. And the kids, I had so much fun with you all. Everything that we learned, you all learned quite a bit about City Council, right? Right? And we start the meeting with what? Oh, breakfast tacos, yeah. Yeah, with the gavel, right? They're going to leave right now, okay. Okay, we'll continue with our presentations. Next presentation is our Parks and Recreation staff has a check presentation to the Mays Cancer Clinic for proceeds from our Kid Cancer pep rally and 5K run. Ms. Schramm.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am so pleased tonight to present this check, and I'd like the mayor to come help me do so. To the Mays Cancer Center, we have Janet Goebel here tonight. You want to come up, Janet? And Miss Valerie Willenchick is here as well. Miss Valerie, will you come up, please? For 13 years now, we've hosted originally the Willenchick Walk for Life, now the Kick Cancer Pep Rally and Run. So we've raised over $191,000 now with the Kick Cancer Run. Tonight, we're able to donate $6,413.13 to the Mays Cancer Center. Also thanks to sponsorships, over 4,300 in sponsorships from HEB, Abel's Diner, Valiant Security, and Schertz Bank and Trust. So thank you to the community for supporting this run. Thank you to council. Thank you to Ms. Willenchick. Thank you, Mays Cancer Center.
Come on, Valerie. Come on. So much, would you like to say a few words, please?
It's a great partnership, and it's so nice to keep this money local to the Cancer Center. We're trying to get awareness out. Unfortunately, cancer does affect each and every one of us in some way, somehow, and so we really appreciate this partnership with the City of Schertz. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a proclamation, Community Action Month. If I can have Bobby, let me see, that's Dyke? He's not here. How about Rebecca Mahoney? Come and join us. In fact, why don't you all join us up here? This is the City of Schertz Proclamation, Community Action Month, May 2022. Whereas the Community Council of South Central Texas Incorporated has established a community action agency on May 11th, 1965. Whereas the service area encompasses South Central, Southwest Texas counties of Atascosa, Bandera, Bee, Comel, DeMitt, Edwards, Frio, Gillespie, Guadalupe, Kearns, Kendall, Kinney, Kerr, LaSalle, Live Oak, Maverick, McMullen, Medina, Real, Uvalde, Valverde, Wilson, and De Zavala. Whereas the community action has been an essential contributions to individuals and families across this nation by creating economic opportunities and strengthening communities. Whereas the community action is a robust state and local force connecting people to life-changing services and creating pathways to prosperity in 99% of all American counties. Whereas community action builds and promotes economic stability as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities and stable homes. Whereas community action delivers innovative services and supports and creates greater opportunities for families and children to succeed. Whereas community action insists on community participation and involvement, ensuring that all sectors of the community have a voice and will be heard. Whereas community action is celebrating 58 years of innovation, impact, and providing proven results for Americans. Now, therefore, I, Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor for the City of Schertz, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Community Action Month in recognition of all the hard work and dedication of all the Texas community action agencies. Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words? Please, please.
You deserve a break on that one. All right. Thank you. Basically what we do, my name is Ernest Liaga, of course, my co-workers, Becky, Mary Ann, and Brianna. And we all work together to achieve one goal, and that's to help people be self-sufficient and out of poverty. That's one of the programs that we have too, case management. But like I said, we help with electric bills, and we appreciate your support for what you're doing today for us. And we have a lot of clients here in this part of Guadalupe, western, over here, the western, Cibolo and Schertz. And you know, if you guys know anybody that needs help, like we try to help with you know, the elderly disabled, you know, and you know any people like that, just send them to community council. So we're there, you know, we've been there 58 years, like I said. So you want to say anything, Becky? Okay, real quick, I just wanted to mention that we have, besides doing electric bills, we also have special projects during the year. We hand out fans, we give out heaters, we do back to school supplies, and we give away bicycles. So, you know, we really care about our job, and we just try to help the community as much as we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Let's take a photo. Right?
Okay, okay.
Okay, we'll continue with announcements of upcoming events. Mr. Kelm?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. On Memorial Day, Monday, May 30th, city offices will be closed. There is a Memorial Day ceremony at 10 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park at 3864 Cibolo Valley Drive in Cibolo. Council is asked to arrive at 09:30 and check in with Henry Conway. On Monday through Friday, June 6th through June 10th, there is the Junior High Fire Academy and High School Fire Academy from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Station 1. There is a graduation on Friday, June 10th at 12 p.m. where the cadets and family members will be recognized with a certificate. City Council is invited to come out any of the days or times to watch the cadets as your schedule allows. And then on Tuesday, June 7th, we have our next regularly scheduled council meeting at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelm. Next, announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Tonight, I just wanted to recognize that our new permitting and plan review inspection software, the City View program that we've been working on for so long, has gone live. And so that's a great thing for the city of Schertz. We look forward to be a very big part of our permitting program in the future. I want to thank Lisa Wood, Emily Delgado, and their team, and also Brian James for all the incredibly hard work they did. It was a cross-staff effort, and we spent the last 2 weeks training and ensuring that the staff's ready to go. So we're looking for good results from that program.
Okay, thank you. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I have none, so we'll move on to the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. I understand the second speaker yield their time to the first speaker, so Mayor Pro Tem, please call our first speaker.
Mr. Preston Kinnikin.
Good evening. My name is Preston Kinnikin. I live in Live Oak at 11218 Forest Pass Court. However, we have a local organization that is now available for your veterans and first responders here in Schertz. I'll start with some statistics to kind of give some groundwork, and then I'll get right into the logistics of the facts of the matter. In the United States, we have 800,000 sworn officers, and that includes both full-time, part-time, and those who are in reserve. But the sad fact is that we kind of get used to seeing our first responders and our police officers going up and down the road, and we say, oh, they must be going to a call or must be going to help somebody, but we don't think about the state of the mind that the person who's going to help the people are in. It's a fact that over the past 5 years, on an average, 173 police officers have killed themselves. There are more police officers who killed themselves because of post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic stress disorder than are killed on the streets. And we kind of, as a society, have accepted this, but this is something that I'm not willing to accept. And if you want to go further than that and you want to talk about, well, if there's 800,000 police officers on the streets in the United States of America, 153 is not that bad a year. But I urge you to continue going further down that rabbit hole, when over the 70 percentile are ending up in divorce. That's in our neighborhoods, in Schertz, in our homes, the children that go to the schools, who are the children of these parents who are seeing mom and dad fight because mom and dad don't know how to cope with the stress and trauma that they're dealing with on a daily basis at work. We expect our firefighters, our police officers, to go out and handle people with mental health conditions when our first responders are dealing with a form of mental health on their own. PTSD is something that was commonly thought to be just for veterans who had experienced combat, but that's not true. Unlike veterans who give their time and deployments to go overseas, and we want to make sure that we support them, we want to make sure we're supporting our police officers and our firefighters in the same fashion, because it is every day that they experience trauma. Police officers and firefighters don't get called to good calls. If the alarms are going off, if the 911 line is ringing, it's something bad has happened. It's never a good thing. 15% of police officers in the United States are speculated to have PTSD, and the number is about the same for firefighters. When you think about that number, that's about 120,000 first responders in the United States of America suffering from PTSD. And we're asking them to go out and deal with people with mental health conditions. And my plea to the city is to utilize us. We are Warriors of Raymouth. We are a nonprofit for veterans and first responders. We have been in the Selma area for the past 3.5 years where we started, and we're finally starting to get traction. In our meetings, which we provide 1 meeting a month, 3 over behind the Rotama Parkway at River City Church in a building that they've donated to us to use. On the second, third, and fourth Monday of the month, starting at 6:30, we feed our veterans, and then we feed our veterans for about 30 minutes, and then we lead into the Combat Healing Training Manual. In that, we equip our veterans with different tools for their proverbial tool belts to deal with the post-traumatic stress that they're facing on a daily basis. Now, it might not seem like that big of a deal, but it truly is when you think about whenever we equip our first responders from a liability standpoint for the departments, for the city, you're putting you're putting first responders on the streets and veterans in our community in their homes with better states of mind. What this does, as far as it depends upon first responders, is it gives first responders an ability to have more stable home lives, which when they go to work, they're able to focus on work. They're not thinking about the fight they just had with their wife or with their significant other. They're focused on work. And when they're at work and they're in a better frame of mind and they're focused, guess what's going to happen? Less citizen complaints, less liability, less officers snapping because they're so wound up because they've been trying to save everyone else when no one's there to save them. And that's something that we all should want. Liability is the second most important thing to most administrations, aside from how much things cost. Well, the point about Warriors of Raymouth is cost administration absolutely nothing. All we ask is that you send your first responders to us and that you support us in our community efforts for veterans and first responders. There's not many organizations around that do what we do, and I think that's sad, but we want to encourage that to be more widespread. We've teamed up with the YMCA, starting with the YMCA in Schertz as ground zero. Our intention is to eventually have a Warriors of Rainbow at every single YMCA throughout all of San Antonio, and that perspective is looking pretty good. We will have 1 meeting a month at each and every single YMCA in which we do the same equipping in the same fashion as we've been doing it from the beginning. We've seen our veterans that have been coming to this group go from in the 50 percentiles in their VA PTSD rating down into the 30s. We said a prayer before we started this meeting. We've had veterans who came in who had absolutely no faith whatsoever, angry at the world and God, come to the point of baptism. And we also talked about something very sad at the beginning of this meeting. The 14 children who lost their lives today and the teacher. Those first responders that came to that scene are still dealing with that right now, who have children themselves. And I've been in their position as a police officer. I've carried someone else's child lifeless. 2, in fact. I've carried my own child lifeless. I know what that feels like. And then to go and hold somebody else's child when you've been through that, it takes a serious toll on the psyche. And most departments, believe it or not, don't even have a critical incident stress debriefing offered to their officers. We're told to shut up and go back out there and do it again most times, whether it's verbally or just the kind of the idea. Just go to the next call. But the truth is we're causing more harm to our officers and our first responders in our community. What I'm asking for is to utilize Warriors of Weymouth and let us come alongside your first responders. Whenever there's opportunities that we can speak to your first responders, we want to take that opportunity every single time. Because I know for me, for example, as a police officer, I wasn't the type that was going to go asking for help because I'm the person that helps everyone else. But the one thing I learned as I was getting certified as a first responder chaplain is that just simply making yourself available is the trick. They're not going to come to you leaping out of the woodworks for help. But if you simply make yourself available, that makes a big difference.
Thank you, President. Thank you so much. We have pamphlets that you provided, right? I think I have some at my office that you handed out, and I'll make sure that the police department has it. Thank you so much for providing that insight.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next individual on the list is Kathleen Chipma.
Hello. I'm Kathleen Chipman. I live at 201 Winburn Avenue. In here. My name's Kathleen Chipman. I live at 201 Winburn Avenue. I'm on the corner of Winburn and Oak. I've been there next month 20 years. So I've seen the growth of Pickle Park right across the street from me, which is the first item that I wanted to speak about is Pickle Park. I walk there every morning a mile, do the lap 4 times, so I have a mile. The Parks and Recs guys down there, they keep the lawns cut, the trees picked up. They're fantastic. They're like greenskeepers. They're great guys. But the bathrooms kind of need a little bit of help. Public restrooms are never nice, and these are kind of like not nice at all. There is a water fountain there that hasn't worked since the freeze, and I don't know if it's the freeze in 2022 or the freeze in 2021. But the water fountain doesn't work. And when we walk in the park, sometimes we need a little drink. So it'd be really great if we could look at the water fountain in the park. And one other thing, walking there every morning, a lot of folks bring their dogs, and I have brought my dogs too. And I bring the little bag to pick up the poop. And there's no signs in the park that you need to pick up your dog's feces. There is up by the pavilion, but not down by the park. And if you can't pick up after your dog, you might as well have a fish, because it does make it nasty for the rest of us. The other thing I'd like to ask the council to consider is Oak Street. I've lived there for 20 years, and I've seen the traffic go from the way it used to be before the fence was put up along all of the children's activities in the park to what it is now, and it's not gotten any better. I believe Sherry from the 311 area has already initiated a work order to investigate, ask the police department to investigate the speeding on Oak Street. Arrow Avenue connects Schertz Parkway to 1518, which is an exit that everybody takes from Schertz Parkway when they're going towards 35. It's a major thoroughfare. It has 4 stop signs. Arrow does have a church and some houses. They have a 20-mile-an-hour posted speed, and they also have this sign that says, "This is your speed." I sure would like to have one of those. You could plug it into my house. I'll give you an extension cord. I'm okay with that. Arrow stops. They have stop signs at Randolph, at Lindbergh, at Oak, and at 1518. Now, Schertz Parkway has, they stop at Curtis, and they have a lighted arrow. So they have 2 stop signs along Schertz Parkway. But Oak Street has nothing. Once you get off of 1518 and pull onto Oak Street, you have a school right on the corner. Then you have a playscape across the street. Then you have the swimming pool. And then you have the multi-use pavilion where the kids play basketball or a lot of people work out. Then you have the ball fields where there's about 4 or 5 ball fields over there. And then you have a daycare center. So there are a lot of children activities going along on that side of the street. And yet, folks just don't even bother to slow down. They just honk.
Thank you so much. We will make sure that TSAC gets that information so that we can have our Traffic Safety Advisory Committee take a closer look at Oak.
I would love it. I would love it.
Okay.
I really would. But I'm praying for you to consider a stop sign, Oak Street and Arrow. That one stop sign could slow down the flow of traffic.
Okay.
The other day, I was on a back road in San Antonio, and it was all of a sudden there was a stop sign, and they had flashing lights around, and I'm going, wow, I don't remember this stop sign being here, but it's something that could draw your attention. Oak Street and Arrow, it's pretty open. There's no big trees. There's nothing that would hide a stop sign.
Okay.
Put one out.
Thank you. I think for clarification, I think you're looking for a 4-way stop sign there. Am I correct? Okay.
On Oak Street and Arrow Avenue.
And Arrow,
That,
okay.
I think, in my personal opinion, I think it would slow the traffic down.
We certainly will have our committee take a closer look at that.
And Mr. James.
Thank you. Mr. James is back there. He'll get some more
Speak to you.
information.
Thank you.
Next individual, looks like Carol Hare.
Mayor, City Council, City staff, and citizens of Schertz, I'm Carol Herr from the Cibolo Parks and Recreation Commission. On behalf of the city and the Parks and Recreation Commission, we'd like to invite you all to the Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 30th at 10 a.m. at Veterans Park. A couple of years ago, it was decided that this ceremony would be a joint city event, and so it is Cibolo's turn to host the event, so we hope that you will all be part of the event and join us on Monday, May 30th. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. You please thank your mayor, Stosh Boyle. We'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And finally, it looks like Tiffany Schertz.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tiffany Shirley with Physicians Premier Emergency Room. I'm just here with the leadership core class, and so it's my responsibility to announce myself and let you know that's what I'm here for. I run a freestanding emergency room. I'm a nurse manager, facility administrator, and an ER nurse for 24 years. So, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
That's all there is, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to consent agenda items. Are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, minutes. The approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of May 10th, 2022. Item number 2, resolution number 22R50, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the purchase agreement with Loyal 9 Manufacturing, also doing business as Sons of Liberty Gun Works, for M4 long rifles and accessories and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, boards, commissions, and committees, accepting the resignation of Dean Wirtz from the Historical Preservation Committee. Mayor Pro Tem, would you please continue to read the...
Item number 4, resolution number 22R48, resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, awarding contract for landscaping the Cibolo Valley Drive medians to Cut-Right Landscaping and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 5, resolution number 22R51, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an amendment to the professional services agreement with Rabba Kistner Incorporated, totaling no more than $69,000 for professional engineering-related services on the Tri-County Parkway reconstruction project and other matters in connection therewith. I would like to pull item number 6. I'll read it at a later time. Item number 7, ordinance number 22T21, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget to landscape the Cibolo Valley Drive medians, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, and providing an effective date. Final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, Council, besides item number 6, is there any others that need to be pulled? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 5 and number 7?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Whitaker. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Item number 6 is ordinance number 22M20, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, setting expiration dates for the end of term of voluntary members, city boards, commissions, and committees, and requiring new applicants wishing to serve or fill a vacancy be interviewed by the interview committee at the same time the city board conducts their annual interviews, repealing all ordinances or the resolution or parts of ordinances or resolutions in conflict with this ordinance, and providing an effective date. Mayor Pro Tem, you had questions on this one?
Yeah, last week we had a rather lengthy discussion, and I really don't want to review that. It's just that 5 years from now, when somebody looks at this, they're going to forget about the time we spent last week discussing this ad nauseum. Anyway, we very much need to strike the phrase, at the same time the city board conducts their annual interviews, because I think we had consensus on the council that we are not conducting annual interviews of our board members. And then also in section 2 of the whereases and therefores, section 2, the word same needs to be removed because it implies that the interviews will be conducted at the same time as the annual reviews. So Mayor, if you would, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 22M20, removing the clause at the same time the city board conducts their annual interviews. Everything else seems to be good. And then, once again, in section 2, removing the word same.
Council, any other comments?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Okay. We have Councilmember Whitaker.
I think the intention was to say at the time of the renewal period. Is that maybe more accurate to say that I think there needs to be, okay, at the end of the terms of voluntary. So we set new end of term dates.
New dates, correct.
And it's at that time when those dates come up for each committee that anyone who submitted an application would be interviewed.
Correct.
So maybe instead of saying at the time of the interviews, but rather at the term ending dates, anyone who's applied would be interviewed at that time.
That would be correct. That would be the same meaning, so
Okay.
at the end
I
of the
think
term
that's what we were
dates.
trying to say. So maybe if you
Gotcha.
say at the term ending date is when new applicants would be interviewed, because we are going to readdress that, correct? We're going to.
I do believe
the interview part of it later, but I think what we're trying to get at is anyone who's applied, who's new, would be interviewed, and the time of their interview is.
I don't think we're discussing reappointments at this point.
No, we're not.
No.
That's why he wants to take that part
Yes.
out. It sounds like
Okay.
we're talking about additional interviews, and we haven't decided on that.
Okay.
So, and I agree, we could take that part out, but to set a time when we're interviewing new applicants would be within that 30-day window prior to the termination or the end of term dates for each
That
particular board.
Correct. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Will that be okay?
Yeah, I think that's what section 2 alludes to.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have no problem with that.
Okay. So did you note the changes, the amendments to it?
Yes, I did, and I
Okay.
will definitely go over the video as well.
Okay.
Make sure I
thank you.
get it verbatim.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, second by Councilmember Brown. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item number 8. Item number 8, ordinance number 22D22. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances be amended by revising Chapter 86, Article 4, Section 86-118, maximum limits in school zones, and add a segment of Fairlawn Avenue and providing an effective date. This is our first reading. Ms. Woodley, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kathy Woodley, City Engineer. This ordinance and the one after it both address the same segment of Fairlawn Avenue from 35 to just short of the first residential intersection. The request was brought about because of the traffic issues that started with the parent drop-off and pickup at the School of Science and Technology, particularly with the traffic calming circle there. Folks tend to stop and not move through the car line like they're supposed to, and it's causing difficulty for the other travelers in the area. So, answer any questions that you have. Other than that, it's fairly self-explanatory.
Thank you, Ms. Woodley. Council, any comments? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. There shouldn't be any parking along that section. You know, something I'd like would be more coordination with the school departments, our ISD, because I notice a lot of problems. I'm going to be showing my age, but, you know, back in the old days, we used to walk to school. Our parents didn't sit outside with the engine running for a half hour waiting for us to come out of school, okay? I was over on Hubertus the other day, and I could not get down Hubertus because the cars were essentially blocking a thoroughfare. I would very much like, in addition to approving this, in the future, could we possibly coordinate with the schools so that we can alleviate problems like this? Find parking areas for the parents who feel the need to pick their children up for school. And it really doesn't have anything to do with this. It kind of sort of does, but maybe I'm looking for a long-range solution, and that probably starts with a little bit of coordination. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you.
Council, any other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 22D22?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, and second was Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola. Am I correct? Yes. Okay, Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right. We'll move on to item number 9, ordinance number 22D23. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances be amended by revising Chapter 86, Article 5, Section 86-149, parking prohibited, to add segments of the Fairway Avenue and providing an effective date. And this is our first reading. Ms. Woodley?
So it's the same location. The last ordinance was actually to establish a school zone so that folks will be aware that it is the vicinity of a school, and this actually prohibits the parking, stopping, and standing in the same area.
Thank you, Ms. Woodley. Council, any comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 22D23?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Davis. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. We'll move on. Roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Ms. Dennis, will provide the roll call confirmation for consent agenda items 1 through 5 and 7, and discussions items 6, 8, and 9. Ms. Dennis?
Yes, sir. Consent agenda items 1 through 5 and item number 7. Pardon me. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Whitaker. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 6, ordinance number 22M20. Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brown, to approve it on final reading, removing the clause at the same time as the interviews, and remove in section 2 the word same. And Councilmember Whitaker wanted to make sure that it indicates that at the term ending date when new applications will be interviewed. Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, seconded by by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dallas, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 8, ordinance number 22D22, first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 9, ordinance number 22D23. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. All right, we'll move on to item number 10, workshop. A workshop discussion regarding Main Street. Mr. James?
Mayor, Council, Brian James, Assistant City Manager for the City of Schertz. We're here to bring to the full council kind of the proposed plan for going forward on Main Street. We've been at this for quite a while. The plan has a number of different elements to it, and frankly, at this point, we're ready to kind of move forward. So just to brief you, we spoke with the Main Street Committee about this in late April of this year to kind of go over the plan for the physical improvements that we've been working on for the Main Street corridor. And as a reminder, staff and the committee have been working with Kimley Horn, the firm we brought on board to do that since the fall. They've had a number of sessions with the committee, a number of sessions with staff to talk about kind of what the desires are, what we're trying to accomplish, educate us on a few things that they've seen in other projects that they've worked on. But just as a reminder, this is not the only element. We've been working on code enforcement, targeted incentives, design review discussion, plain art installations, and again, the last one is a carryover from the last meeting, so that's an error. Frankly, the whole slide was. So just as a reminder, then let me back up. Kimley Horn's been working on primarily street resurfacing is one of the big, most visible elements of the plan. They've also looked at entry monumentation. We want to frame so that folks know when they've hit Main Street. Street furniture is a big element, trash cans, benches, things like that. Improved lighting is something we've heard about, and we've heard about that more over the last few years as we've had more development on Main Street, and we've been able to move more toward that, moving away from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, not full 24/7, but evening activities, things like that. Landscaping and art concepts. A new element is the undergrounding of the existing overhead utilities. That was not contemplated in the first part of the plan. As we've had people come in and develop, they've said this is a bit of a hindrance. When they've looked around at what other communities have done in these areas, that's been something they've seen. We've also looked at adding the water and sewer line replacement. Again, it's older infrastructure out there. Doesn't have to be done today. It's not funded necessarily today. But as the project has evolved, the obvious question came up, do we really want to leave that old infrastructure in place, have to come back in at some point in the near future, tear that up, and move it forward? Lastly, and this ties into the entry monumentation wayfinding concepts, because for Main Street to really be, I think, what the committee wants it to be, we need to bring people in who aren't aware of our Main Street, aren't aware what it is, where it is, things like that. And then finally, we want to try to define some of the on-street parking areas that have been an issue. So again, as I mentioned before with the first messed up slide, you know, while the physical improvements are a significant step, previous efforts have included grants that we've done, both the historic and the local flavor grant. We also recently had the new building, new construction grant. New zoning districts that we've had, Main Street mixed use, Main Street mixed use new development. We've modified development regulations to make it easier for folks to take those small lots, existing structures, and convert them to businesses. And then finally, we've also done some modifications with the floodplain regulations to make that a bit easier. We've held a number of different special events. I've seen most of council at those in the past. The idea with that is to find a reason to get people down to Main Street to see something they haven't seen before. I know, again, a couple of council people not aware of the new ice cream shop down on Main Street, stood there with them myself, tasted some new ice cream. I believe it's vegan and carb-free, things like that. You wouldn't know by tasting it. Very good. And then again, we've worked to highlight kind of the Main Street businesses in the efforts, Schertz magazine, things like that. So it's been a long effort, but it was a little bit of, rather than just a build it and they'll come, let's do some of these other things that are impediments. The last 5 years, we've seen some additional progress or so. So again, in addition to the restaurants that have been down there, we've added the Purple Pig, the Bar House, Americana Coffee and Espresso Bar. Las Pinchachas has gone in where Rocket Feed had been, that had gone in since we started the effort. So we've seen some turnover. Quissy Ray's Dance, KM Counseling, Regal Realty, and again, we have the Hidden Grove coming soon, the food truck court, and then the new building at the corner of 824 Main. And I'll be honest, since I've been here, which has been over 10 years, there has not been a new building built on Main Street. And again, there are reasons for it, floodplain, others, but I think the effort is worth it. This is the artist rendering of it. Again, it looks multi-story, it's a single-story building, but again, I think what we've had is people buy into the concept that we're going for and are making significant investments in Main Street. And that has really led to this, which is coming forward and asking for a much more significant investment in Main Street. And I think in large part it's because what we've seen happen, what we see as the potential, and frankly, two other elements: keeping up with cities around us that we're in competition with, and then frankly, a lot of this is part of the city's larger effort to keep up with infrastructure, and aging infrastructure that, whether we were making this effort, need to be redone anyway. So the idea is to tie it all together. And so as I said, you know, part of this is regular maintenance. The street and utility work, it just needs to be done as our infrastructure ages. We've done some of the things with the water line relocation on Arrow and some of the other streets in aviation. We've done the SPAM project that John Nowak talks about. But it goes beyond that. And again, I'll point out, if you compare the pavement condition index score for a portion of Main Street, the eastern side, it's worse than the Schertz Parkway side south of Live Oak. So it's something we need to do regardless of trying to make a bigger investment. But part of it is, as the community's grown, what we've heard from the citizen survey a lot is they like the small town feel. I moved out here because I didn't want to live in a bigger city, didn't want to live in San Antonio, didn't want to live in Austin. New Braunfels is getting a lot bigger. I wanted that small town feel, but we struggle to maintain that. You know, it's one of those sorts of things, and the story I tell, or a couple that I tell to emphasize that is, you know, our fire department, and appreciate the folks who spoke tonight, that started as a volunteer effort, and now it's paid staff, so our community pitched in. The first playscape over by the library was built by volunteers. The Veterans Memorial Plaza, constructed, and the efforts were done by a group of volunteers. And now, you know, we tend to, city picks up things, other organizations picked up, because it's just the way our society has changed, our community has changed, and part of it is, you know, we're not a county seat. We don't have that square like Seguin does, like San Antonio does, like New Braunfels. We don't have that element, and so the question is, where is the heart of our city? Is it here, this complex? Because of the council chambers? It's great, but, you know, if you don't have a kid playing baseball, if you don't have an issue with the city, you tend not to come up here. Main Street was that heart. You know, you sit with the Historic Preservation Committee and they talk about where they would go shop, where they would go buy things on Main Street, what that heart was. And over time, as the city has grown, just because of our physical location, the freeway, not uncommon from a lot of cities throughout the country in Texas, that growth kind of shifted, that focal point sort of shifted, but it wasn't small town feel. Everybody loves HEB, but it's not the small local individual business that I think people kind of long for, like the coffee shop and things like that. The other part is, again, to promote economic development. We have a lot of great businesses in our community, a lot of industrial area, but people talk about where can somebody go if they want a local, unique, small business to start. And often with the prices of rents and things like that, it's a struggle to be up on 35. So Main Street can be that as well, and I think that's what we've seen, the dance place, things like that. And then an area that I think is a really big deal and we don't recognize as much is, if we allow Main Street to decline because we don't make that investment in it, that decline, and communities across the country have seen that, spills out around it. And so again, we hear that from folks about investment we need to make in our older facilities. The resident who spoke about the restrooms at Pickle Park, I don't think anyone who's been in those restrooms, despite what we've tried to do over the last few years to improve them, it's just old. They're old restrooms. There's only so much you can do. And so part of it is we don't maintain the health of those corridors on the perimeter of that neighborhood. That decline can spill over quickly into the neighborhood. And so again, obviously you get balance you need to have, things like that, but we need to invest in some of these core areas of the older part of the community to maintain that larger neighborhood going forward. So all of that is a setup soon for a couple things. One is we got to keep up with the folks around us. So, you know, we talked with this committee about this, and again, who 5 years ago, who 7 years ago, who 10 years ago would have thought in San Antonio Magazine that in the best of the city, that the best suburb to spend an afternoon in would be is city of Cibolo. And not a knock on Cibolo, to their credit, with what they've done. And again, they've got a lot of attributes that we struggle and would like to have. Some of the historic buildings that are more the typical historic building, you can see they've got a number of them. We've kind of got one of them. You know, we're in the floodplain, things like that. But it can be done, and again, it can be the heart of a community when Cibolo moves forward. But again, New Braunfels and communities like that. And so, frankly, if we want to keep up, we need to have that thing, and I think the obvious thing becomes our Main Street. But it doesn't come cheaply. So because of some of the changes in the schematics, because of changes in cost, because of adding some of this stuff going forward, and again, one of those is the decision to try to underground the utilities, the overhead power lines that get in the way, that block the sidewalk, that limit where you can move drive approaches. You know, they're great for hanging banners, I suppose, but it'd be nice to have an ornamental light fixture to hang a banner on instead. But relocating that comes at a cost. And then part of it is when you do that and we start looking at redoing the water and sewer and saying, why would we not fix this other thing too before we come fix the thing on top of it? Once we do that, then we've cut the street more, And what we were going to do before, necessarily with a mill and overlay, doesn't make sense. It's a reconstruction. So the reasons these costs have grown up, but I think the idea is if we're going to make this investment, a couple of elements. One, we've talked about this, it doesn't need to be Taj Mahal. It doesn't need to be gold-plated. We have too many other needs. But if we're going to do it, let's do it right, and let's do it in a way that our community is proud of, and when our citizens look at it, they say, yeah, we got our money's worth. So again, if you think about the Animal Adoption Center, if you think about Fire Station number 3, we could have done those less expensively, didn't gold plate them, but their buildings our community is proud of. They show up in Schertz magazine, we put pictures of them up on the website, and so what we don't want to do is do something halfway and have people go, well, this is great, but it's never going to happen. And frankly, there are communities across the state and across the country, I think, that have kind of made that mistake. We can go in and do, a little bit of lipstick on a pig, but it's a fairly sizable investment, but they haven't gone far enough, and they haven't done all of the other things as well that I think we have done to try to move that forward. So it comes to about $10.5 million, and a couple of caveats with that. So what staff is recommending is that council do CO bond issuances with this. This year, $3.25 million, and then come back in next year, assuming we'll do $7.25 million. And the thing with this is it can be done without raising our tax rate. Now, we lose a lot of that benefit of the tax swap that we have talked about, so it limits the money going forward with that. But the other part is, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is we want to also look to some other sources, go back to EDC once we've made this investment. So again, as a reminder, what we really need is direction from council to say, yep, we're committed to this, let's plan to move forward and go big with it. And the other example I'll use is, frankly, it's the skateboard park. And it's in some ways much less important than Main Street, but we built that first phase of the skateboard park 9 years ago, I think. And how many of you have come to me and said, where are we on the next phase of the skateboard park, right? How many of you had a citizen come and say, it's great, but it's great for about 30 minutes, and then you're going, where's the rest of it? And so we struggle with that. So things that we've talked about, I think we learned the lesson. We tried that a bit with Ashley Park. What do we need to do when we've had to add stuff? And I think we're to the point of kind of being done with it, but it's taken a lot of ongoing resources. We've talked about this internally with staff. When we go in and renovate a building, and let me give you an example, the Fleet Building. New Fleet Building is not gold-plated by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a place that I think if our citizens went in that they often don't, would be proud to see. If we were trying, I'll say this too, if we were trying to hire mechanics in this economic climate in that old building, we could probably just give up. One of our selling points probably is our new building. And so again, it's a matter of if we're going to do it, let's do it right, because if we go partway with the building, when are we really going to come back and do that next element to it? And so to some degree, because of that skateboard park analogy, and because of this disruption for businesses, and really to have that impact, staff's recommendation is we just need to do it. And move forward. So what we'll likely do, because EDC has contributed some of the money that we've been using for the design, some of the money for the parking lot acquisition, some of the money for the sidewalk stuff we've done so far, is go back to them and say the city has stepped up, made a very big investment. Now that council has made this big investment, we'd like you to step in and pick up part of that. So certainly can't promise, but the idea is if council is willing to do it, if they have to, we can go to EDC and say, this is your role as a partner, this is what council have done, and so let's bring that down to pick some of that back up on that second year phase. Certainly we'll look at covering some of the art stuff with hot funds. That's not really included in the $10.5 million. Part of what's included in that $10.5 million is Lindbergh, but that was on our spam list, so we'll look at how we sort of shift around. We are still finalizing the cost of the underground utilities, but I will say we have significant contingency and significant cushion for rising cost because we knew how big this project was, so that's built in. So we think we're working off a pretty good estimate when everything kind of plays out in the end. So as I said, staff is recommending we do it as one effort and not phase it. Obviously, it's a long term, so we can fund it in a couple of tranches, if you will. But the thing I'll say, and staff does a lot of great work, but there's a lot of great work that we do and city council does and that our citizens do and that our community does. It's great at the time, but the impact isn't, it continues to impact our community, but it does not impact it the degree to this will. And so I would offer this up. If we think about a legacy project that can really, something that we talk about to say, this was one of those big decisions that changed our community, I really think Main Street is that. It, you know, we'll build fire stations, and they're certainly very important, not diminishing that. But there's almost sort of that expectation, and it's part of that we talk about, we want to move here because we have these great core services, so police, fire, things like that. But that's not what brings people to the community. What brings them to this community is the sense of community and all of the great things we have, and what we hear about that they lack are a really kind of unique place. So as an example, when you have somebody come in from out of town to visit, where would you like to take them in Schertz to hang out for an afternoon, out to eat, things like that? Main Street would be that place in kind of going forward. And that's really what we're pushing for, which is, I think, a bigger vision than we've seen, because frankly, on some hand, the change we've seen has been fairly significant. And so it'll have a long-lasting impact. It really is resurrecting that heart of the community, that if you talk to people who have lived here for a long time, Pete Perez on the Main Street Committee, he will tell you, I remember when I was younger and we went down to Main Street and we did this and we did this and so on this and so on that. And so again, a lot of great businesses that are part of the community, but I think even those businesses in the community would say, yeah, it'd really be great for my business to have that unique kind of place when I have a client come in town or when I have something to take them down to some place like Main Street with a variety of things to do to walk around and enjoy that. And then again, so that we can grow some of those programs and things that we have. But frankly, it's also basic infrastructure. We need to fix a street one way or the other. We need to replace the water lines one way or the other. It's frustrating to have a telephone pole in the middle of a sidewalk one way or another. And so that's really what staff is proposing at this point. And really, so the direction is we look for direction from council, say, this is the vision we would like to go, have the engineering firm continue to refine those costs, continue to work with TxDOT, GVC, the franchise utility companies, start working on the plan for the water and sewer that wasn't part of it. James Walters in Finance will start setting this up for the first year with the CO bond, and we'll start having those conversations with EDC going forward, and then we'll start promoting this effort to get the redevelopment to continue to go forward in our community. I have some information about what the plan looks like. You know, we've talked a lot about entry monumentation. There's been some comment, rather than over the street, how can we kind of do something that, again, is appropriate big, but maybe we save a little bit of money, so single columns coming up. You know, we've talked about the thing where the floodplain impacts our ability to do bump outs up and down the whole length. We've talked about making sure that we can have events and things like that. So again, the light strings at significant intersections to help with the lighting, things like that, the additional landscaping and design and things like that kind of going forward. But the idea, I think, is to give them the ability to go forward, finalize that stuff, then have that plan and that vision. You know, I've talked about this too. What we need, and this is sort of old school, but it's that poster board with the pictures and the images of what we're doing exactly on Main Street that, again, I talked about earlier in my career. The city manager took around the story I heard about the park with the pond in it in another community to sell people over and over. So he went to the Lions Club meeting, he went to the Rotary Club meeting, he went to Chamber of Commerce, and he had his poster board, and it became this joke. It was him selling this concept of something that seemed too big for the community that now really is one of the focal points of the community. That's my spiel.
Thank you, Mr. James. Council, questions? Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, from my perspective on the Main Street Committee, I know this seems like a lot, but in the past couple of years working with the Main Street Committee and the public, the Historical Preservation Committee, as Mr. James said, this is the heart of our community. And if we don't take action, I think we're falling behind with all of our peers. He mentioned the article that you saw there where best suburb to go and spend an afternoon in Cibolo. And if you looked at the community news lately, you'd see that Universal City has a 15-year development plan
for the area right outside Randolph that includes all of the Aviation Drive. You know, they just put a lot of money into Aviation Drive. They've had new businesses open up, Gather Brewing, and if you follow that road, it takes you right down to our Main Street, which just needs work. And again, in our discussions, it makes more sense that makes no sense to turn around and texture the road and lay down some asphalt just to come back in the next year or 2 or 3 and tear it up to replace a water line or a sewer line. So my perspective is, I think it needs to be done. We need to put a significant effort into Main Street, and I think if we're successful, it'll roll over to the rest of the corridor, and you can see that when you look at 78. If you go down to Cibolo, their stretch of 78 looks considerably better than the Schertz section of 78. That's because it's all new construction. I mean, they went from having nothing to brand new buildings down there. So it just generally looks better. But at some point, we've got to put an effort into the 78 corridor, and this could be the springboard that helps launch that if we can get people down into this area. So.
Councilmember Whitaker.
I think that's a very good point, and having just come from the subcommittee talking about our requirements for residential, for PDD requirements, things like that, I think the gist is that the city of Schertz has a higher quality expectation, and that's reflected in what standards we put forth for our housing with 10-foot setbacks, which is very unusual for the area. 5-foot setbacks is normal and expected in every other community. So if we're going to have those higher standards, it does seem like we're missing an element, which is that quaint downtown feel. I love Schertz Parkway. I love everything that's been happening here with the library and the park and everything along here, but I think we do need to continue that down Main Street, and I do notice 78. I sure wish we could, but if Main Street, improvements on Main Street could then spill over onto 78, I think that would be great. But it does seem like we're a little bit unbalanced if we're going to put so much effort into higher housing requirements for new development housing and then not take care of, as you described, kind of the heart of the community being a quaint downtown with just a slower paced feel. I really do enjoy Cibolo's Main Street. They've come a long way over the years. Before it was just Harmon's Barbecue out in the middle of nowhere. You're like, where was that barbecue place? And you find it eventually, and now they've got so much there. So that's just been in the last 20 years. And we have the potential to do something like that. I think it makes sense to do it right the first time. And if there's a good plan for that financially, then I'm open to hearing that.
Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
You're going to hear the alternate view. Way back when they said, Main Street, $1 million, are going to put it into the project and see what we get, that was a pipe dream. Everybody knew there's no way in the world you could get anything accomplished for only $1 million. $10 million, now there's that's a little bit of a shocker. Here's my point. If the residents think it's worth $10 million for the improvements of Main Street, well then bring it to the residents. I am not in favor of signing off on COs. And this thing about, we could do that, we could absorb it without having to raise the tax rate. Come on, this is smoke and mirrors. $10 million is $10 million is going to get paid for somehow, and how does the money generate money to pay for things like that? Everyone knows the answer to that. So, you know what? Maybe I'm just lacking the vision, but I could see $10 million being used in a whole bunch of other places. I'm not going to stand in the way of progress, though. I say bring it to the voters. Let them decide. That's all I have, sir.
Councilmember Dalla.
So you're talking about these CO bonds on this, looking at our long-range bonding forecast, is that changing anything in our capabilities in terms of what we've talked about for future roadway projects as well as the new fire police station?
So it doesn't change the fire police station. It changes the tax swap that we talked about with recurring revenue. It pushes that back, yes, sir. That's how we pay for this.
I still think we have 8 million, isn't that right, James? And was it 27 or something like that? I don't think we've changed that.
Yeah,
with this.
haven't changed that.
The primary change is in the tax swap.
Yep.
I mean, and on the surface, it looks expensive, incredibly expensive. Repaving the road is definitely something we need to do.
Yeah, and this is reconstructing.
Yeah, reconstructing,
And at some point, it's
repaving.
going down and
Yeah.
doing it fully.
And, you know, and it makes sense to include the water and sewer lines as part of that. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. It is a significant additional cost, but those pipes are 65, 70 years old at this point, and their life expectancy isn't going to be that much longer, so that's a perfectly valid expenditure. And I see the vision, I see the goal. I'm struggling with the underground portion. You got some work to do to convince me on that part. I think that's my initial thoughts based on what you showed us tonight.
Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, and going back to the, just the basics that Councilman Dolly was just talking about, the road, the infrastructure, the sewer, the water lines, I mean, that's a huge chunk of that money. We're not spending $10 million on trash cans and benches.
That's correct.
So the majority of the money we're talking about is going to be spent one way or the other, okay? And if we incorporate it into a Main Street vision, we'll get just that much more out of it in the long run. Well, in the short run as well. So, you know, I really support this. Again, I realize that it sounds like a lot of money, but the majority of this is for infrastructure and roads that we are going to spend one way or the other.
Yeah.
All right. And as far as undergrounding the utilities out there, it's not that large of a portion, you know, of that.
Yeah.
What was some of the numbers that were coming out?
Yeah, they're finalizing the cost. I mean, it's we'll have to see. I'd hate to even give a number, but yeah, it's not half the cost to underground the utility or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination.
Definitely.
But it's also, that's a huge visual enhancement down there as well. And it's also going to offer some opportunity for the development as we move forward. I mean, that's one of the things, if you look at that photo of Cibolo, there's a whole lot of stuff out there. You know, and it doesn't exactly, yeah, it's old, and it looks like it, you know, versus having that old school with a little touch of modern utilities and amenities. So
We can probably refine the cost of the undergrounding for next meeting. We can give you an update on that.
Well, then would those utilities also be waterproofed in the event that we do have a flood event, or would they have to be torn out, replaced after something like that?
No, typically not. I mean, you know, again, you think about where utilities are undergrounded currently, even if you're not in the floodplain, they get inundated with water, I mean, as it is.
Council, any other comments? Councilmember Davis?
Just to touch on this again, in discussion with Kimley Horn, a lot of these numbers are padded.
Yep.
And that was a deliberate move because of the unknown with delivery of materials and where costs may be going. But the general feeling was that we should be under this number. And then to address Councilman Scagliola's point, you know, a good majority of this stuff is existing infrastructure replacement and repair. So while I agree that if we're doing something new, you want to put in a brand new park that doesn't exist, you want to put in a brand new fire station that doesn't exist, I'm all for going back to the residents to to have them vote for bonds. But we talked about this before with regards to COs and the difference between general obligation and CO bonds. If it's something new, then it's good to have the residents have a say on it. But if it's repairing or maintaining something that is already part of the city, you know, it's kind of counterproductive to say, let's make it a GO bond and go back there and do that. You know, people will come back and say, no, I don't want to approve the bond. So what's the result then? We don't fix the street? You know, Main Street is in the main portion of Main Street that is not maintained by TxDOT is in dire need of repair. And it's not the type of repair that we're just going to go in there and do a simple mill and overlay. There's a lot of areas that need substrate repairs as well. The water lines need to be replaced. So if we say, let's do a general obligation bond, you know, I can imagine the people in North Schertz or the people in South Schertz will say, why do I have to approve a $3 million bond to replace a water line that doesn't affect my house? And to me, that's the difference. That's why I think this is more appropriate as a CO. It's just another part of the city that we have to take care of and keep up to standards. You know, let alone the talk of, you know, making improvements and putting in something that's going to make it better. It just needs to be fixed.
Councilmember Hayward.
I was going to touch on something that Councilmember Davis said. I got on the committee to make sure that we could, to try to help spur it along, because it seemed like it was taking this long, drawn-out process from when they originally did a bond for Main Street, and it just keeps grinding on and on and on and on. Knowing that our Main Street will never look like anyone else's Main Street, we will have something unique, because Schertz is unique in the way that we do things. There are people that think we are the bougie of the cities around here because of things that we want and expect in Schertz. And understanding that a lot of the cost is repairing the roads, doing some of that. And knowing that once Main Street gets there, it will probably be a place that people want to go. And I get the whole difference in the GO and CO, but again, in talking with different people and going about, if it's not my area, I'm not voting on it and giving you the money for it, because it's not my neighborhood. So I think CO is probably the best option for this, and seeing the designs, and I think maybe bringing in some of the, I mean, I know they're still in the process of doing it, because on Main Street Committee they bring in things for us, and bringing in and seeing the whole concept of what that looks like, then the $10 million gets put in perspective, because a lot of that is sort of like when you're remodeling a house. You buy this old house, you think you're going to put a whole lot of money in it, and they come back and go, well, we've opened the walls, and here's your problem.
Foundation. Yeah. Nobody ever sees it.
Nobody ever sees it. So when you're remodeling an old home, people don't see the bones and the things that have to be done, and so then that cost changes because of the things that are behind the walls. And so for us, it's the road, and knowing that it will flood, and if we can stop flooding in one section, then maybe we can work on continuing that process with the other parts of the area, because I know flooding is an issue there. And so for me, I think it's time for us to just, you know, as they say, sometimes you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet. So let's crack some eggs and make that omelet.
Councilmember Dalla.
It's kind of a related question. What impacts are we seeing with the recent ordinances there for on-street parking and stuff?
So we have seen one of those businesses come in and request, understands the impact of it, requests to be allowed to park on an unpaved area. That's been approved, but wasn't approved right away. Wanted to make sure they had a better feel for what was going to happen in 6 months. They had to plan to kind of deal with it, to know it was kind of going away. And I think it's come down a little bit, you know, I've heard from folks, but you should see that happen within the next week or so. Them get off the street, get on that area, as they've talked about other arrangements they're working to make to move those cars long term and keep them off.
Council Winnie, you know, when Dr. Brown mentioned the price tag on this, yeah, I too shared the same concerns Dr. Scagliola had. $10 million is quite a bit. And I also thought at that point that the taxpayers needed to provide some guidance based on the amount. But then listening to Councilmember Davis, he did make a valid point there. This is existing structure that we have. It's not something new. And it's needed repairs. We all agree the repairs are needed.
Stuff should have been going on for the last 50 years.
And that's what makes it difficult, is that we know the repairs are needed, but the price tag is high. And and I always thought if you're going to do it right the first time.
Do it right, be done with it.
Exactly.
I think the other thing we face as a community that's a challenge that we need to continue to work on, and this, again, I'll get up a little bit on my soapbox. We've had a lot of growth in the last 25, 30 years. And certainly we've heard from residents on areas where we have newer development and those bits and pieces of infrastructure that we haven't kept up with because it stands out so dramatically. And I think a lot of those folks in other parts of the community don't have as much awareness of what we have in terms of some of the older areas, aging infrastructure, things like that. They'd frankly probably be a little surprised that we have this area in the condition that it's in. And so again, I think it's just hard to get people to understand as spread out as we are.
Yeah, and the effects it could have on the rest of that street and trickle over to the other side of 78. It can happen. We just have to make that investment. I think council is consensus that we know we need it. The issue is how we get there.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say, Mayor, too, again, we've had good support, I think, from EDC. And I think if EDC sees the city's committed to it, it's a big deal. If they have to fund it themselves, then it allows EDC the reason to say, because I think we've seen a bit of that. If it's don't just come to us asking us to pay for everything, but if the city's really committed and stepping in, they've been there. Can't promise, we may have to, but again, that may mean, if we're successful there, that it pulls down the amount we have to issue in that second tranche. It's a lower number. It allows more room for other things going forward, too. So we'll certainly take an effort at that.
Okay, let's move forward that with the CO, and we'll have further discussion when it comes back to council at that point then.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll move on to requests and announcements. Any further announcements from our city manager, Dr. Brown?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Council, any possible updates or information requested from staff? Yes.
I'd just like to say, as we're moving forward with this discussion, more detailed information on the different cost categories on what we're looking at.
Okay. Any other information? Yes.
It's something a little bit different. The senior center, I received a call that the AC was out, and it was, one of those days that was really hot. And so I just wanted to thank everyone, the staff and Public Works, for jumping on it and trying to make sure that they had the proper AC. And then the company that we deal with, instead of it being a 6-week turnaround on an AC unit, they were able to kind of do some work around and get a unit in 3 weeks instead of the 6 weeks, because of our commitment with them and the partnership we have. So I just wanted to let everybody know, and then just thank everyone for the outstanding job they did in trying to make sure that our seniors were not going to burn up while they were at the senior center having a good time. And so I know the second unit will be put in, I guess, within the week. So, and the other 3 are hobbling along, and we'll pray that they keep going so that the seniors can stay cool over the summer as it gets hotter. And so I just want to say thanks.
Okay. Any possible items you'd like to place on the future agenda? Yes, Councilmember Hayward.
I'd like to place on the agenda, maybe council start looking at going back to liaisons on the boards and commissions.
Okay. We'll get together and get more info. Yes, Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I'd like an item on a future council meeting for discussion and action on an overview of all the fees that the city charges for development and specifically regard to the impact of waiving them from Main Street development.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay. All right. Council, yes.
And also maybe possible discussion with council on, and staff on being able to meet with the different boards and commissions, maybe all of them, instead of just the planning and zoning, but all of them at least once a year.
A joint meeting with each? Oh, we'll have to have a discussion on that. I don't want to place it on the agenda. I think I need more information.
It doesn't have to be on the agenda. It's a
Okay.
discussion, not necessarily an agenda item we have to vote on, but something to discuss. Being that with the interview committee, the process that we were going through to change some things because of, you know, issues that maybe if we're either doing liaisons or having meetings with them to try and figure out where we are, not that necessarily we all have to be on the, you know, take the same stance, but they have an idea of council and we have an idea of what they're doing and where they're going.
Okay, maybe we can tie it in with your first request on
Yes.
council. Okay, got it. All right. Any other items? Okay, announcements by council members. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, 2 events this week. Went to the Live Oak Parade. I was in very good company out there. We had AJ in his Crown Victoria leading the Schertz contingency, and then Todd EMS vehicle, and I was right behind him. And then had a good discussion with the joint P&Z and council workshop today. Hopefully we resolved a couple of issues. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Yes, attended the police memorial ceremony. It was a very good ceremony put on jointly by Schertz and Cibolo. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Whitaker.
I attended the Bellissimo Studios ribbon cutting a couple weeks back. Also the Northeast Partnership Luncheon, the Chamber Monthly Luncheon, the Police Memorial, and then today the subcommittee meeting. That's all.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla.
Just the subcommittee meeting earlier today. It was a good discussion. I really appreciate everybody's time and effort on that.
Okay, Councilmember Hayward.
Yes, I attended the chamber luncheon and the police memorial. It was a good event put on by the dual city, Cibolo and Schertz. And it's just tough to wrap your head around how many police officers lose their life in a year, and there was a lot of them. I think it was 109, so that was a tough one. Attended the investment committee, and some awesome news for me that is really exciting, maybe for no one else, but I attended the TML Leadership Academy, 6-day Leadership Academy, completed my academy, and I am now a TML Leadership Fellow. I received a plaque and a pin, so it was a great event. It was a great event, learned a lot, and it was just amazing with being able to also network with different people from different cities and different staff members and other council members and mayors, and just a wealth of knowledge there as well. So others should think about attending.
Councilmember Brown.
And I attended the police memorial. Well done, folks, and that's it for this week.
Okay, the time is 7:34. We stand adjourned.